Now, to key vocabulary, there's a bunch of examples that are in that article. If people want to download my response, it's about 10 years old now, to the Andrew Gabriel Roth publication, which was already then on its 5th edition. So that has been around for 25 years, probably, I think, at least, pushing that Aramaic was the original. But I'll give you an example of an easy one. The word that Paul writes, he uses it a couple different times, the word arabon, for what he calls is the pledge of the Holy Spirit given to the believers. Paul in Greek, he uses the Hebrew word. He writes it he writes the Hebrew word in Greek letters, arabon. And because obviously he's writing and he's teaching people this Hebrew term, arabon. Well, if you look at the Aramaic Peshitta, it's like some strange word. It's not a Hebrew word at all. If all you had was this Aramaic text, you wouldn't know what Paul was really talking about. When you read it in Greek, you're going and you understand. He's like, oh, this is a Hebrew word he's teaching right now. There's examples like that. There's examples from, if you want to read my article, short bit on John chapter 3, Yeshua talking with Nicodemus, that there's an example there you can review. These are just ones that come to the top of my head. But here's the other thing is we want to understand that the Second Temple period was a time where Jews in the land of Israel and in the diaspora spoke a multitude of languages, but Greek was the main, what they call the lingua franca. Aramaic had already come and gone with that. And so what you see, and you see this in the Septuagint, that is the Greek translation of the Torah, there are all these places where the Greek words used are actually Aramaic words spelled with Greek letters. So we see that it's the Jewish communities were speaking Greek. The Maccabees, Philo, Josephus, all were educated Jews who wrote in Greek, and they sometimes talked about a Hebrew word, sometimes talked about an Aramaic word. Go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, I mean, the fact that they're transliterating the Aramaic into Greek letters, this is a clear evidence.
Pascha. All the main words, Sabbatah, Sabbath, the word for Pascha, Rabbi, or Rabbi, Abba, Father,
right.
Manna, the word for manna, that's Aramaic. In Hebrew, it's man, but manna is Aramaic. But these are the words that Greek-speaking Jews knew in their Aramaic terms. So they were kind of, their brain was blended with words that they knew from their Aramaic-speaking predecessors. But but there was not a problem for them to speak in Greek. Any difference than it's a problem for us to speak in English today and occasionally use an Aramaic or a Hebrew word. But what happens is Greek becomes demonized sometime around the Talmudic era, because you have a shift in rabbinic viewpoint at some point where they go from, you could, in the Mishnah, if you recite the Shema in Greek, you've done your obligation. You don't have, in other words, the rabbis in the time of the Mishnah, which is still after the destruction of the temple, but they're saying, if someone says the Shema in Greek, they've still said the Shema, right? You might think they say no, unless you say it in Hebrew, it doesn't count, right? Because they are viewing that the Shema it's an obligation to recite. And even if you do it in Greek, that's fine. You've met your duty there. But a couple hundred years go by, and the rabbis turn on the Septuagint. And sadly, it's polemical, though. The motive of that turn is not substantive with the Greek-speaking Jewish heritage. It's like, look, we have to attack, and largely because you have a lot of believers who are using the Greek language as their main language. And by attacking their language is one way the rabbis can try to get some traction against them to say, no, we have the true tradition that goes all the way back to Moses. And it's not Greek. Ironically, there are thousands of Greek and Latin loanwords throughout all of classical rabbinic literature. It's like
synagogue
throughout. Afikoman, right? From the actual Passover, the Mishnah relating to Passover uses a Greek term.
Thank you so much for watching this video. Tell us your thoughts on this subject by leaving a comment in the comment section. Make sure you like, share, subscribe, and enable those notifications. And we'll see you in the next video.